Okay, welcome everyone. This is the Granite Mountain Movie Club. I am your host. I go by Granite. And today we're talking about Dune Part 2 from Denis Villeneuve. I think that's how I say it. I don't know. It's kind of a big hit movie. I think we're coming up on the second weekend, but I've just been pulling up periodically, just looking at like IMAX screenings in my area, and they're like 80% sold out every time I pull them up. So I think this movie's gonna keep making a lot of money, and it seems like everyone online has seen it. And yeah, it's just kind of it's had a big impact, I think. So today I'm joined by two recurring guests, Cool Fraser.
Hello, I'm cool and I'm listening. Bilal Khalifa.
and Degree Studies.
Hello.
Well, welcome guys. Would you guys agree I will say for me, the response to this movie has been a big surprise. I knew it was going to be it was going to be a big movie. That wasn't a surprise. That'd be a reasonably big movie, but has the response surprised you guys at all?
Is it on pace to do much better than the first one? Yeah. I can't really remember how well the first one did.
First one was a pandemic.
It was simul release on HBO and in theater,
okay.
So it didn't.
Yeah, so it's hard to compare.
Well. I guess I don't know if this is a factor, but the one thing that did occur to me and was sort of like a risky play is that the way they broke up the narrative of the book, I think most of the exciting things happen in part 2. So like certainly my perspective on this movie was that I was looking forward to it much more than I had been looking forward to part 1. So I guess in that sense, it doesn't surprise me. But at the same time, it's sort of surprising anytime a movie is like very successful these days.
Yeah, the 2021 part 1 film made $435 at the box office, and this one's already at 200.
Yeah, in the first weekend.
Yeah, after not even a full week. So yeah, this one will do quite a bit better. I don't know if this will. Oppenheimer ended up making over $1 billion. I heard someone say this is outpacing Oppenheimer so far, but probably won't have the same legs that Oppenheimer did, where people just kept seeing it for like 6 months for whatever reason. So, but there's the financial response, but I'm actually primarily talking about just the response online. Like,
yeah,
everyone, there's like and I don't mind this. Some people are snarky about this, but I think it's fine. But like everyone has to have a take. It's just like everyone's got to weigh in and be like, it's good or it's bad. Like that has surprised me.
What surprised me, and I saw a meme about this, is that years ago, being a Dune expert made you not cool, but now being a Dune expert, everybody's like, can you please help us, Mr. Dune expert, with how what's going to happen next? Like, being a Dune expert is cool in 2024.
Well, I saw I saw it the other night, and immediately after, you saw like groups of friends still in their seats, like all turned to each other, and there was like the one guy who's like usually like the fattest guy.
That's me.
And that they were all like, they're all asking him like, so what did I just watch? And then I go out into the hallway, and there's like 6 groups all standing in a circle, all talking about the movie. Once again, like there's a fat guy holding court, and like, good for him. This is his moment. He's studied for this. And now the moment has come.
No, for real. Like, it's weird because I think, and not to zoom ahead, but I think the Zendaya Chalamet casting has paid off because it's really entered the normie mindset. Like, it's not, because this is pretty like dense sci-fi, right? Like, this isn't just like, oh, it's Star Wars or something like that. It's like pretty dense stuff, but like now it's like 14-year-old girls are like talking about where how the water of life can be changed by the Bene Gesserit. And
yeah, I think we're gonna see some still suits at Halloween.
Oh yeah,
a sexy still suits.
I do want to just say about like the general discourse and Dune entering the discourse. I mean, one, I sort of like when, I don't know, a niche interest of mine. I'm not as much of a Dune head as Cool Fraser. Perhaps no one is, but I do like the books a lot. And so I like the sort of themes or whatever getting out to a wider audience. In terms of discourse, at least in our corner of the internet, I would link it back to sort of the premise of this podcast, which I think is like, we want to rescue right-wing themes from the text of like normal, competent art. And I find it pretty annoying when people are just like, I mean, I'm curious to hear your reaction to this, but like whenever someone just tweets like, not explicitly racist, like I'm bored. It's like, yeah, it's a major release. Like, you know what's in the book. It's like, I don't know. To me,
lazy.
It's just people should expect that like normie art will be in some way normie, and then it's fun to be like, yes, but these other like more subversive or interesting themes were also in there. But it is pretty brain dead to just be like, the people on Dune are brown and like Chalamet is helping them, so not right wing.
Yeah, I mean, I pulled a couple tweets, and I don't mean to target these people.
Let's target them.
Let's target them. So we've got Charles Haywood here. He's a respectable figure in our circles. He says, saw Dune 2, biggest movie disappointment of my life. Not just shitlib though, or though that, and much more so than the first movie, but worse, intolerably boring. It's like, I don't know. I just like can't really take that seriously. Like first of all, how everything that he seems annoyed about, like, was kind of already you already knew Zendaya was the star or the second and lead or whatever. Like, I don't know how you're that disappointed. Like, why was your expectation so high? But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I responded to him like the boring accusation. Like, yeah, the movie is a little long and there's maybe some segments that are a little boring, but I don't think that's going to resonate with most people to just like say, oh, this was boring.
I actually think, and I'm open to, people can have different aesthetic sensibilities, but I will say that like everyone else, I think my persistent existence on the internet, like as time goes by, my attention span has been degraded, as has everyone else's. But like this movie and also Oppenheimer, like had my rapt attention. Like I was sort of very engaged for the full 3 hours or whatever. And so I don't know if it's just that I really like Villeneuve's aesthetic choices, or I don't know what it is that's engaging me exactly. But yeah, I think the boring accusation is the one I have the hardest time relating to. Because like if, I guess they're making another one now. Like if someone had said, like, if you sit in your seat for another 3 hours, like the next 3 hour Dune movie will play, I would have happily sat there. So I found it like just extremely, because there's are some problems with the movie, but like if I got sort of annoyed by a Zendaya or Chalamet performance in a particular scene, the next scene would be like some breathtaking view of Arrakis or the planet where the Harkonnens are, and I'd be like right back in. So I'm genuinely surprised that people found it boring.
And part of what happened was, at least in our circles, and I don't want to overstate one person's influence, but it did seem pretty influential in this case, where Mr. Grove, like the day after the movie comes out, puts out an episode, saying this is just unequivocally a very bad movie. It's just like, this is terrible. It's a bad movie. Nothing good about it. Or, I mean, maybe that's not quite fair to what he said, but, and I'm not even sure how many people really listened to his like half-hour podcast. They just saw the title and they're like, oh, Mr. Grove has dismissed this. I can do the same. And like, you could tell a lot of the people replying in comments, you could tell they hadn't really seen it yet. They were just sort of like, yeah, but it's, it's dumb and it's brown and stuff. So you're like, oh, okay. I kind of felt like that one sort of gave a lot of people permission to just dismiss it out of hand. And then as like the weekend went on, other influential people would report back and they're like, hey, this was actually kind of spectacular. Like I actually, going to go against the grain here and say I loved it. By Monday, it had mostly been reversed, but there's still like some people, riding the counter signaling train.
Yeah, I did think it was spectacular, and I think when I have like a spectacular movie going experience, I'm willing to let a lot of things go.
Yeah. Well, I would say, the bravest thing you could do on like Friday on right wing Twitter is say that you like this movie. You love this movie. And me being the bravest boy, I did that. I didn't get a lot of support, but I felt like I was vindicated 3 days later.
Yeah, being the bravest boy is its own reward, Granite.
Yeah.
You know that. But did you guys think, I guess this is like a little bit, I don't know if this, I don't think that the criticisms of the movie were this substantial, but I guess I did feel like in the books, the fact that Paul has to become like this sort of galaxy spanning tyrant, and he has to pursue this path that will result in the deaths of, I think in the books it's trillions. Like, it is played tragically, but he's still a hero. And I feel like the movie did lean a little bit more into just being like, no, it's not tragic that history produces figures like this. It's actually bad. And I think like
Right.
how they will resolve that is yet to be seen. But I guess if I had seen a more substantial criticism of like, the way somebody could have put it where I would be more sympathetic is like, Dune is a book about like the immense moral weight of being a tyrant in history, but how like this is a necessary thing. And the movie does maybe stray a little bit where you could just give it like an anti-imperial reading. And it's a tricky thing because everything Villeneuve is representing is in the books, but he is sort of turning it, I think, in a more he's sort of making the politics more contemporary in a way, and I felt complicated about that.
Yeah, to me that's where he dumbed it down the most. So the whole point of Dune is that Paul is a good and righteous man. Like that's the point of it. Is like he is this supremely good person. And yet he still oversees these forces that are kind of greater than himself that cause the suffering of countless, right? And so the whole point of the first book is, yes, you're cheering at the end for the Fedaykin taking off across the universe. And maybe there's a little hint that, oh, wait a second, but just a hint, right? And then it's not till the later books when actually Paul comes back and kind of preaches against his own legacy, right? And his legacy is continued through his sister and kind of made even worse. And that's kind of the interesting part of all the novels is the fact that yes, you're rooting for this guy, but then you realize like what were you rooting for? Whereas in this one, what they have is they have inserted a character from modern day to be like, killing is bad. And like, that's how they literally end the movie. And so I do think there are valid criticisms of the movie, and I get if like it ruins the movie for you. But for me, it's like, it's a great movie with like just a couple small problems that are irritating, but at the same point understandable.
Cool, Fraser. What if you gave a number score out of 10? Where would you put it?
This movie,
Yeah,
I give it a 9.
Oh, okay. I knew you liked it because we've been talking. I mean, this is like I say, like it's been like nonstop talk for a whole week, and like the movie.
What's the best part of the movie? The best part of the movie is when you're chanting Lisan Al Gaib with everybody in the theater, right?
Oh, did you get your theater to do that?
No, I didn't. But imagine that would have
Yeah.
been the best part, right?
Well,
like Like the coolest part of the movie is like when he finally is like a bad A and is just like taking names and killing everyone, and you're just like,
Yes.
yes, this is what I wanted to see in Dune. Like when he nukes the shield wall and they come riding in on the worms, just devouring the Sardaukar. You're like, this is the best thing ever, right? Now what? But like they have to include Zendaya being like, I don't like this, and it's like it really betrays the excitement of that scene. And honestly, like especially now knowing that they are going to do Dune Messiah, I think they should have saved that for the next movie. It should have been like just triumphant, like
Oh yeah, and
as
have her.
Stilgar's running onto the ships to go take over the universe. We should be cheering, and then you realize, oh, we've made a mistake, right?
Yeah, and then just to clarify for my own sake, my thinking, it doesn't seem like she's objecting to the killing. It's just that she's like she's portrayed as more of like a purist, free Palestine type, and she's like, oh, I want to kill the invader, but I don't want to. I don't want you to become a prophet or a god in the process. Like, I don't like the idea of you being so powerful. I do like the idea of my people getting to kill the enemy, though.
Yeah, I agree with that interpretation, but I also agree with Cool Fraser that like, because also just not that the movie like needs to conform with history, but I think when there are like revolutionary movements, no one is so clear-headed
Yeah,
to like literally at the moment of victory be like, but this could go wrong. It's always like
and like so
when they rule.
explicitly, like
Yeah, it's really just like a magical Negro trope because no real human character would have that foresight. Like any person would just be like, this is awesome. We've liberated our planet.
well, and they kind of portray it. And this was the weird thing because I didn't see it till Monday, so I got a lot of people's reactions, and they were like, "Oh, when he made his big decision." And she was offended, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like that's not in the books. But like they kind of just portray it as she's a scorned lover, which is I totally get that choice because I feel like that does appeal to normies, aka women. um,
Yeah,
and like it makes Dune a relatable story for women when really it's not. Um, and and so I totally get why he did it, but at the same time it's just so heavy-handed as the last shot of the movie when like literally like had they ended it like 5 seconds earlier, the my theater would have erupted into applause. Instead it was kind of like everyone was a bit like, huh, and then like a couple guys clapped
yeah,
because like they explicitly tell you, and this is bad, remember, this is bad, even though like everybody's like, we just defeated the enemy, Lisan El Gaib, he's got his powers, like hooray, you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you had it at a 9. That's where I'm at too. That's the exact number I have written down.
Yeah, I basically think it's the frustrating thing about it is it could have been a perfect movie.
Yeah,
So I think I get why people are upset. It's a great movie, but it could have been perfect, and that's what's so annoying. Literally, I think I could perfect this movie just by deleting a couple scenes.
yeah. Degree studies. I don't know if we've like poisoned the vibe. Like maybe you don't feel like you can answer honestly, but where are you at? What would you give a number score?
I think I'd give it an 8. But let me be like annoyingly pedantic here. I certainly think if I were grading on any kind of curve for like the modern cinema experience, then it's like a 9 or a 10. Like I enjoyed it so much more than even like good movies I see these days. I think it had enough problems that I'm for some reason compelled to say 8, but like it's probably the best movie experience I've had in a couple years.
Yeah, I can't. I've been trying to think about a theater. My initial like tweet, sort of, reviewing it was like I talked about the theater experience, and I don't know. I can't think of anything in recent memory that has a comparable theater experience.
Yeah, the last one I can think of is Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, which I didn't see in IMAX, and regrettably so. Which I assume they'll like re-release it when that new one comes out, and I plan to do that.
You guys know I'm sort of a hater, but the Stilgar certain Stilgar lines were getting huge laughs in my theater
Yes.
in a way that was pissing me off. Like, the people just loved it so much when he was like, oh, the prophet says he is not the prophet, which is what the prophet would say. And it's just like a 50-year-old white woman next to me being like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Like, yes, this is what religion is like. And it's like, shut up.
That's the other problem with the movie, is they have no understanding of religion.
Say this could be rooted in me being like this insecure Christian or something, but I that's how I kind of interpreted some of the laughter too. I'm like, oh, you guys are laughing at Christians right now, aren't you? Yep, I know you are.
Well, like the whole thing, and it's in the Dune books too, is like, yes, it's a fake religion invented by the Bene Gesserit, right? And they hammer that home in this movie, but like at the same time, he does become a prophet that is able to see without his eyes and see the future. He's this like God King of the universe. So it's like, okay, yes, it was intended to be a fake religion, but once again, there's these powers greater than themselves that kind of take charge, which is kind of like a big point of the book. And technically it's in this movie, but it almost seems like it escapes either the people who are making it and definitely the audience, because they're like, they don't even explain like or dwell on the fact that, oh, we thought this was made up. Like even Paul did. You know?
Right, and there's no non-supernatural explanation really for like why Paul can survive the water of life. Like every religious tradition can account for the fact that like institutions will cynically deploy religion for control, but ultimately they are the unwitting instruments of God. And like that's how I always interpreted Dune as well, because like the very fact that the Bene Gesserit obviously can't control and have no real plan to control the project they initiated, like I interpreted that as like they also didn't really understand what was going on, because they sort of thought Paul's singular power would be like still human enough that they could bend it to their will, and that wasn't really the case.
Yeah, and Stilgar is played for laughs, but he's literally the only one who is right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also like, if this was Palestine, it's like the Islamist jihadists would have hung all the secular nationalists generations ago, so this conflict wouldn't even exist, because like the fundamentalists always win.
Yeah. Where do you guys rank this among Villeneuve's other films?
So I'm a huge Prisoners head. I think I would still have Prisoners ahead of this, but it's hard to even compare them. Like they're totally different kinds of movies. I think this was better.
Prisoners has less problems.
Yeah, I think this was much better than Blade Runner 2049. And I know some people really love that movie, but that movie connected with me. It's a similarly beautiful movie, but I had a harder time with the story. And maybe because in this case, the story was, farmed out to Frank Herbert. I thought like still every scene was amazing to look at, but the story beats were a little bit easier for me to follow. So I'd probably have this number 2.
Cool. Fraser, what about you?
I haven't thought of it yet, but I to be honest, I would probably rewatch this one before anything else. Oh man. Yeah, I kind of, like I said, I think Prisoners has less problems other than maybe like corniness of the solution of the film, maybe. But really good. Blade Runner good. But yeah, I would say Dune 2 all the way. I just love Dune too much.
Yeah, so this for me is number 3 probably for Villeneuve's filmography. I'd go Blade Runner 2049, then Prisoners, then this. This was really good. I mean, we've already said it, but yeah, I think, and that's what I was trying to get across to a lot of people I've been talking to over the last week. Like I think in a year or 2 years or further, you're all kind of going to admit this was good.
Well, and also like having been a Dune fan for decades and seeing the other Dune adaptations and how many problems they have, like I am pretty forgiving. Like, it's a hard work to adapt. He made some choices I don't agree with, but on the whole, he did it. He did a great job. Like this, and it's like amazing, and the ability for him to translate some of like the iconic scenes in the books onto now iconic film scenes. It's like, this is great for Dune fans.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I know there was a lot of detractors just in our own circles, but the general like normie reception is incredibly high and incredibly positive. I don't know. Something about this doesn't necessarily feel like it'll be nominated for Best Picture. I don't know if it'll be considered like a real contender. For some reason, there's something that doesn't feel like it's going to fit in that category. Maybe they'll just wait until, you know, Dune Messiah or whatever to award it like a Best Picture. But yeah, the normie response has been incredible. I think I don't know if these are accurate. I know they like astroturf these things, but the user score on Rotten Tomatoes is like 95. People be loving it. And Letterboxd, which is, you know, it's more of a Gen Z audience, I think, but you know, it's like a 4.6 on there. That'll come down, but when more people see it, you know, when it comes out on smaller screens and people aren't as impressed. Like I don't know if your first screening is at home, that's like, you probably won't rate it as high, but that's a very high score for Letterboxd too. So a big criticism though is that the claim that it's like woke or something. Like I guess that's the path to talking about the casting. Like that's sort of like that's the speed bump, right? Is Zendaya, or I learned today it's Zendaya. I always called her Zendaya, but like what can be done about that? Like, could they even make this movie if she's not in it, or someone comparable to her?
I have a take on this because I went in knowing everybody hates Zendaya, or not everybody, but a lot of people do.
A vocal minority of which we might be a part of.
Yeah. And so I go in and I'm like, you know, let's see. And at first, you know, they portray her like, this is one of the deviations from the book, right? Is that the further north the Sietches, the more like civilized they are. And they're kind of like, we don't believe in the old traditions. We're modern people who go clubbing or whatever, you know, when, you know, that kind of exists in the book. There's southern tribes that are like esoteric and weird and believe in weird stuff, but that's more in the later books. And then, you know, there's technically the Fremen that live in Arrakeen, the main city, and they're kind of more civilized than the Fremen who live in the Sietches. But like, it was never like more religiously conservative or anything. But like now it's basically like, you know, you've got like your indigenous people and then like the people who like are no longer indigenous and kind of like live on the reservation or something. I don't know. And, and honestly, like I thought it was kind of dumb, but like I also get that in a world without religion, like maybe it helps audiences to kind of get on board with like the becoming of the Mahdi and Muad'Dib, to kind of frame it in that sense of like, oh, nobody actually believes, but then it happens anyway. And as I'm watching it, I was actually like, okay, he picks his little brown girl that he likes. He likes her, and she's kind of like not impressed by him. But then she eventually starts getting impressed, and she's like showing care for him. And then like they're even like making out, and they're like, you know, she's like, you know, on his side. She's like, yes, I'm for you now. I want to protect you. And I was like, okay, this is good. Like they're showing an actual relationship forming. You know, they've kind of changed it from the book where, you know, Paul kind of led things to now she's kind of leading it, but whatever. But then like as he continues to win over more and more people, she just like distances herself more from him and hates him more and like dislikes him more, which in my opinion like makes less sense.
Yeah.
Realistically. And like it also makes her unlikable as a character.
Women are famously totally indifferent to status, you know, so
right
as
like,
you rise in the world, they hate it.
I think the last time she's kind of on his side is when he rides the grandfather worm, and she's like amazed by it, and she's like smiling and cheering for him. But then it's like when it's time to become the Kwisatz Haderach, she's like, "I'm not going to bow to you," and it's like, why not? Why
Yeah,
aren't you on board? Everyone else is. Literally everyone that was against him is now on board, and you're not.
yeah, it reminds me of those like serialized television shows where, or procedural shows where the main character has this like thing. Maybe he can like read minds, or he can tell when people are lying or something like that. And or Dr. House, right? Like the House show, like every single episode, the main character is right after like, this, after 40 minutes of like arguing with his coworkers or colleagues, we learn that he's right. But then like that resets, and like the next episode, they have to argue with him again. This felt like he just kept like he killed like one of their best fighters, even though he was just, a teenager. And then he like knows how to dress and talk like them. He fits in unusually well. He rides the biggest sandworm they've ever seen. And there's like, and she like, but she like still doubts him every time. Like, it's like at some point, like just go along with him, because he's obviously.
Well, and they kind of did that at the first half, but then it's that last half where she just like is totally not on board, and it's like,
yeah, there's also a difference that the movie, I think, screws up because it's a function of our society, where like in the books I feel like Paul and his mom are outsiders, but people don't think they're like stupid or lame. Whereas like the movie really, it's like they have powerful traits that the Fremen don't understand. So it's like, yes, they don't start knowing our ways or whatever, but they're not like the movie sort of plays it as like, oh, this is like a wigger, like faking defunk. And like
Yeah.
that doesn't really make sense if it's like you're positioning this guy to help you like liberate the planet. Like it's a little bit weird. And I think that gets into, I think people are, with their Zendaya critiques, they're like, they're focused on race and claiming she's ugly. And I think the real problem is that like, I don't think she should play like a tough character. I think there are other female actors, even brown ones, who are like more believably cast as sort of like close to nature and rugged. And I don't think she necessarily pulls that off. And I also think she's very modern, like in her mannerisms and I don't know, expressions, and certain things she does like took me out of the movie. So I feel like people focusing on the woke thing are missing that like you could have had a lot of the plot beats be the same, but I think with a more capable actress it would have been less annoying.
Mm-hmm.
And with the woke accusation, I think I'm with Delicious Tacos, who says Dune 2 is either the most misogynist or most feminist movie of all time. And then he also said Dune 2 is a horror movie about women.
Yeah, I did always think in the books that Jessica was a particularly frightening and disturbing character, and I think the movies captured that.
So anyway, yeah, we're back, people. We had a computer problem, but we are back. I think what I was about to say though is that I had heard some complaints about Chani as a character being like a girl boss or woke or whatever. But to part of that, I would say like, yeah, she's sort of nagging and sort of, she's not supportive, but we don't have to like, you don't have to accept. And I don't even really think the movie is asking you to accept her behavior or like her approach. Like you can watch it and just say, well, she's
a flawed
annoying
character.
Yeah, like it's not necessarily like just because a movie, has a character who has behaviors that you don't like, it doesn't mean that they're being endorsed, and you don't have to like accept them.
I agree with you. I think about that as a response to film and story in general. And I don't know if I can defend this perfectly, but I do think this movie, in the text, it is trying to tell the audience this is the one character with real moral clarity. And I actually wish it did that less. So that doesn't mean that it's not possible as a viewer to disagree. I just mean that I don't think Chani's perspective is presented as one of many perspectives. I think it's presented as the correct from the point of view of the filmmaker.
I think that's fair. I'm trying to determine. I mean, yeah, she's kind of. I don't know. I guess the middle road, which I could probably accept, is it's like just saying, "Oh, she's got reservations," but it's not. She's not wrong, and Paul's not wrong. They're just not seeing things the same way, or something. I don't know, but that'd be a very maybe a modern way of thinking about it.
Well, and I guess if you compare it to like the stories that Dune spawned, which Dune was kind of one of the original, like, young man destined for greatness stories. So like if you think of Harry Potter, what if there was a character that was like, Harry, if you keep becoming a better wizard, it might be dangerous. I don't know if that happens.
Yeah, or someone who was like, Muggles need to liberate Muggles.
Yeah. Yeah, like it would be like kind of annoying because like everybody's rooting for Harry Potter to beat the bad guy. And if there was someone who's like, but you need to be careful though. Like it's just it's an annoying character. And similarly, like, you know, think of Star Wars. If someone was like, Luke, if you keep becoming a better Jedi, well, that might be bad though.
Yeah,
Like it's an annoying perspective to have, but like it's so ubiquitous now in like deconstructionist media of like, what if the hero is bad? And it's like, yeah, but he has to be a hero first for him to be bad, and then it makes it more impactful.
Yeah, I guess maybe now I'm going to back into agreeing with you, Granite, which is like, I did experience the movie as like, yeah, you're trying in all these ways to get me to have reservations about Paul killing absolutely everyone, but I don't have them. I'm hyped.
Right, like I said, when they were getting on those starships, I'm like, yes, let's kill all the infidels, make all the great houses kneel at the Atreides. I'm like,
the scene that got me the most hype is when he, you know, after being a little bitch about his destiny for, 2 hours, is when he just walks into like the religious conclave and is like, I'm going to break whatever rules I want. And if you challenge me, I'm going to tell you what you dream about. Yeah. That was my favorite moment.
Yes, that was the best moment. Like I'm like, yes. And honestly, like I wish there would have been more of that and less of, you know, I said right after I saw it, I wish there was more Lizan Al Gaib and less Lizan Al Nagging.
Yeah, I love when he's just yelling at everyone and commanding people and shouting them down and things like I thought that was awesome.
Are we talking about casting now then? Because I think some people have said that giving Chalamet a couple extra years actually helped a lot. But yeah, I think he did a great job from the transition of Paul to Muad'Dib. And like, yeah, he seemed kind of like a scary desert prophet at the end. And I was like, this is good. Like they did a good job. And actually, well, I'll leave it there. But I have thoughts on all the casting.
Yeah, I'm a Timothy hater, kind of. I mean, I didn't love his casting in the first one, and I still would have hoped that there was someone else that that could have done this role. But I think he does very well, especially as he grows up a bit. He's never, and I know in the books I don't think he ever is in the books, but he's never physically imposing or anything, and which is fine except for. There's all these shots. There's all these full body shots of him like atop a sand dune, and he just looks like a little kid. So that's not ideal, but you know.
Well, yeah, and they didn't necessarily build him up enough as like an amazing fighter, which he has the Bene Gesserit fighting skills, which they don't even show in the movie, but it's where they can like move faster than you can perceive.
Yeah,
because they've like trained their bodies to do so.
Yeah, I think I said this in maybe, I don't know if it was the Dune 1 podcast or my podcast with Cool Fraser about the book, but like Dangerous Twink is a aristocratic archetype that like I buy both in literature and in real history. And
Yeah,
like
that's yeah.
and so I think it works uh as like the way to play Paul Atreides. I think Kyle MacLachlan was also a good casting because he's even more of like he has a slight foppish quality that works, but he's a little bit more believable as like also an exceptional athlete or fighter or whatever. But I don't mind that they cast sort of like a fancy boy in that role because it's sort of like one of the questions of Dune is like how do you collect all these like martial and social traits in one person? And so it has to be something sort of weird. And like, I don't think Paul Atreides can be played by like Channing Tatum or whatever. So like, you have to do something other than just like a beefcake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm actually pretty positive on all the casting in this. I wish Christopher Walken did more weird stuff.
Yeah, what is it? What is it about in the books? There must be something because I haven't finished reading it, and the parts I have read, I don't think the Emperor really appears. So in Jodorowsky, he wanted to cast Pablo Picasso.
No, Salvador Dali.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Dali, yeah, other painter guy. But, he wanted Dali, and then the Lynch version. I don't remember. The Emperor is not particularly weird there, but he's nothing. Yeah, he's a little weird too. And then, so is there something in the book that's like, oh, the Emperor is this kind of strange guy or something?
No, it's just when you hear Emperor of the universe, you think he would be kind of weird dude. But
Yeah, the book also does a better job, I think, of convincing you that like these people are so wrapped up in like the sort of Game of Thrones at scale of the universe that like they aren't going to have things like their daughter being like it was wrong to betray like the Atreides. Like they're fully beyond conventional morality. And I think and that actually what made like Leto Senior sort of unique in the book and also maybe uniquely weak, but it's cast as both admirable and soft at different times is that he was sort of like a moralist. But the
right,
books are very clear that like no one in this world thinks that way. And the movie at times sort of makes it's a little bit like thematically inconsistent because it's like okay, Irulan is scandalized by her father, but like also they deal with the Harkonnens and like they know what they're like so I think tonally the movie is trying to have some like connection to our moral universe, and I think at times that's a weak point as well. Because I think in the books, Irulan's judgment of her father is almost entirely that he got outplayed, never
yes.
that he was like immoral.
Well, and she technically, I mean, spoiler for Dune Messiah, but she's not necessarily on board with Paul and stuff like that.
Right.
And she does her own scheming.
Well, in her casting, I saw some complaints about her. I mean, I know here's another one of these things where it's like people make fun of her looks or whatever, but
I'm pro Pugh.
yeah, I'm sort of neutral on the Pugh question, but it's like people. I saw some criticism of her role. I thought she was fine. I mean, nothing.
I thought she did good.
Yeah, and some people are referencing the Lynch version. I don't think I know the actress back then was maybe considered more attractive, but for her time, Virginia Madsen for her era, but
well, you know what they did? They kind of swapped a bit of the personality traits of Margot Fen Ring to Irulan because it was Lady Fen Ring, who is played by Leah Seydoux, who warns Jessica that there's a traitor amongst the Atreides, and is kind of rooting for Paul secretly.
Okay.
And that's totally cut out because also the other thing, which I think they should have kept in, she's married, And
Yeah, Count Fen Ring. Where's
yeah,
Count
Count
Fen Ring?
Fenring was the owner of Arrakis before the Harkonnen took over, and she was his Bene Gesserit wife. And then she goes and has sex with Fade Routha. So it's like it makes her even more scheming, right? And kind of odd and like a scary witch lady, um, a sexy witch, um, and and like to a certain extent that adds more layers and stuff to this whole thing because there's kind of this inner Bene Gesserit loyalty. There's this, there's competing loyalties in the universe, whereas in this it's kind of like everybody against Paul.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Leah Seydoux. We'll just go down the people that we mentioned, but yeah, I mean, I thought she was right for the role, and
She
then
did great. Yeah,
she's got family ties to the Dune intellectual property.
yep.
What is that? I think I can't
It's her
remember.
grand uncle. I looked it up.
Okay,
Was the original producer for the Jodorowsky Dune.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. I'll just say on Pugh again. I think people are focused on the wrong thing. I don't care how she looks. I just think she's not a very compelling actress, and I think that's sort of like a subtle role. And
I'm very pro Pugh. I liked her. She did good.
What did she bring to the role that was like? It's
no,
like
so
totally...
what I liked what they did with Irulan is because I was worried about it. I liked that she was somewhat sympathetic to Paul because in the books she meets him before they take him down. Like she goes to Arrakis as like an emissary of her father, and meets with Paul before they take down the Atreides. And so she was and she is supposedly like the author of Dune, right? Like the book starts with her quotes about the life of Muad'Dib, and she's kind of this historian keeping track of his life. So she kind of admires him, but at the same time hates him because of her position as kind of wife in name only. So I thought they did a good job of setting her up as someone who would admire Paul Atreides and kind of stuff like that. I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, I think so. You have Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and Florence Pugh, and then they throw in Austin Butler. I don't know if maybe there's some others, but like that is like the fearsome foursome of like under 30s star power. Like that is that is the biggest star power we have now, which is not very high, but he kind of, I think Dune is so unusual. I think probably somewhere in the production and in the financing of the movie, they're just like you have to knock this out of the park, and you have to take on like these sort of names because otherwise, I don't know if you're going to be able to generate the interest.
Yeah, and Austin Butler was, I think, the best of the four.
I agree, and I've been seeing that everywhere that Austin Butler kind of steals the show in some ways, which I think is great. My only criticism: he should have taken off his shirt for the last fight. Why was he wearing a shirt?
Classic Cool Fraser complaint.
Well, not just a shirt. It's like it looked like it was built like with metal and plastic, and it's like that doesn't seem fair in a knife fight. But
and like Sting is shirtless in the knife
fight
he's
wearing
at the end, and that's
speedo,
it shows how nuts this dude is. Like I just think that was a missed opportunity to have like a white skin shirtless man.
And I get that they're every movie needs a white skinned shirtless man, but I get that they were trying to make this accessible for a very broad audience and keep it PG-13 and all that. I would have just, if Denis had me, by his side, I would have made Fade even more sort of sinister and scary, more brutal. And then I would have made, but then I probably would have. Here's what I think would have been cool, and maybe no one would like this, but I think it'd be cool. That last fight where he has, I think it actually would have helped. It would have been really interesting with the momentum of Paul's character if they engage in this fight and Paul just crushes him. Like it's not even really a fight.
I sort of thought the same thing. Yeah.
He just and it would have been cool. And I know again it's PG-13, but it would have been cool if he just did one of those things where he's just like smashing his head, right? It's a fist, like he just obliterates him. It's like broken. There's like, and everyone in the room is like looking around side eyes, like this is insane. Like what is going on? I would have liked. I think that would have been cool just to have.
Yeah, it was kind of weird for him to be like, the transcendental God King, and then he kind of has trouble fighting one guy. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of an odd choice, I thought.
I just think
But-
it would have been fun to have Fade be built up just over and over, have him be built up as this
Yeah.
unbeatable thing, and then have him be crushed instantly. I think that would have been cool.
Yeah, I literally thought the same thing. Yeah.
Well, and in the book, the only way he stood a chance is he had a poisoned knife in his boot.
But in terms of being shirtless, cool, Fraser, you're a big if you've got it, flaunt it guy, right? You have that
that's
bumper
me.
sticker, and you're always saying that.
Yes. No, I thought he did a good job of coming across as like charming but yet creepy. But I do think the only problem with the Harkonnens in this, and our fallen comrade had a good take on this, is the whole scheme of the Baron in the books is he was sending Rabon there, and he kept telling him to be like meaner and meaner and meaner, because his plan was to then say, "Oh, we're taking Rabon away and putting Fade, who is going to be like the beautiful savior of the people, and the Fremen will like him because he's going to be way nicer to them."
Yeah, the books are much more interested in like the strategy of actual politics.
Yeah.
And I think that is a cool element that's slightly underdeveloped in the movies, but there's so much to cover that it's hard.
And how they
anyone.
portray it in the movie is Fade is just even more ruthless, and that's how he wins. But like that doesn't make sense as a strategy, long-term ruling a world,
Apparently, it couldn't occur to Rabon to bomb the places where the Fremen live.
Right,
But
just shoot a lot of bombs at where they live.
This
That's a good
is
plan.
Fade Roth's brilliant insight.
If they had seen Avatar, they knew they could have just burned Home Tree, but they didn't.
Yeah, exactly.
What'd you think of the noodle melding scene?
Just their love making in the tent or whatever.
Oh no, I was thinking of the other kind of noodle melding, the sand trout, little snake worms that they drowned in the water.
Oh, that was cool. I mean, that's cool to see the little procedure of how they do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just amazed. In some way, art is really an exploration of all the forms that noodle melding can take in different times and places, and so I'm just I'm on this journey of seeing them all.
I like the person who was noodle melding that worm. She was like a bow-legged dwarf.
Yeah.
So that was a nice
good casting on bow-legged dwarf.
Yeah.
Although I think you guys know what casting I would suggest for this, right?
Well, who could it possibly be?
Zazie Beetz.
You want Zazie for the worm
for the
extractor,
worm
not for
the worm itself.
Zendaya?
I want her to be the worm.
Okay.
No. Yeah, she should be Zendaya. Imagine.
Oh yes, you want Zazie to be the worm so that when your true love asks you, "Would you still love me if I were a worm?" you can say yes, Zazie.
Exactly. The origin of that meme actually is Dune. Would you still love me if I was a worm?
I also thought Rebecca Ferguson was great, just as casting aside.
She did good as herself and the voice of her baby fetus. Did you like the baby fetus? I liked the baby fetus.
I was down with that. It's and unironically, I'm trying to think. The most famous fetus in film is the 2001 baby, but this one might be it's got to be top 3.
Yeah,
top 3.
No, it was good. The book also does a better job of like, and again, it's hard sometimes because if you're a big Dune bookhead, you're like filling in the blank, but the book explores more fully like why this sort of wisdom of the ages would be a cruel thing to expose a developing fetus to, whereas the movie is like, what have we done? This is so terrible. And then it's like, what did it do? It's like, oh, she's super smart.
Yeah. She's smart and like tells jokes as a baby.
Yeah.
Did you see the deleted scene of the baby fetus? They had a microphone up to her belly and she was like telling jokes.
I did not. I did see a couple tweets.
Tough room.
Maybe from one of you guys about how this is obviously an extremely pro-life movie. And I was like, oh, people got to this joke before I did, so I can't make it. But
yeah, libtards would have aborted the baby. What's her name? Aaliyah or whatever?
Aaliyah.
Yeah, they would have aborted her.
Aaliyah died in a plane crash.
Yeah.
She would have been good, too.
She would have been good. She would have been good as Chani, yeah. Okay, what's his name? Gurney. What's his actor?
Gurney, great casting.
Yeah,
And can we give a round of applause to? I was very upset in the first one they didn't have it. He plays the Balicet in this movie.
Yeah,
come on, that was so good.
He sort of the movie was not the movie wasn't on life support or anything, but he really when he shows up, it like got me back into it. It was sort of like okay, nice. Like this is
now to bring more book lore into it. He is led to believe because they did our man Thufir Hawat dirty, who is just dead, I guess. But in the books, he's alive, and the Baron uses him as his replacement Mentat because the Mentat died with the tooth poison.
mm-hmm.
And so, but Thufir Hawat is led to believe that Lady Jessica was the spy. And he leaks that to Gurney somehow. And then when Gurney gets back and sees Lady Jessica, he plots her assassination. And then it kind of gets caught by Paul.
Do you guys know why was Josh Brolin writing poems to people on set? Is there backstory here?
I think he just loves poetry.
Probably just trying to get in character because that's like what Gurney would do, right? He's a bard.
I guess that's right, yeah.
Yeah.
He's probably just inhabiting that space.
The poem to Chalamet was pretty weird.
You think?
Yeah.
What if I wrote that poem to you? How would you feel?
Well, that would make sense. We have a lot of history.
What did it say? I don't really remember. I mean, I saw him on some.
It's like, I love your milky white skin, you tiny little boy.
Yes, part of it was like very homoerotically paternal, but then part of it was, I always think it's strange when actors, like, do you guys remember when J.K. Simmons was doing a lot of press over Whiplash? He would talk about like how much he wanted to kill Miles Teller. And it was like very confusing because it's like Miles Teller doesn't seem like, I mean, Miles Teller was good in that movie, but he doesn't seem like this, like, he would just say these overwrought things of like, I'm trying to get a good performance out of Miles, and like he's almost there, but he gets up to the edge and he won't jump, and I just like want to wring his neck. And it's like, what? I know artists are weird, but like, what the fuck are you talking about?
That sounds like what his character's doing in Whiplash. So
yeah, I guess part of my confusion is like just not really relating to how weird actors get with the roles they're playing. Because I think basically the poem is just capturing like a lot of the emotions that Gurney would have towards Paul. And I'm just like, yeah, but that's not you old fucking weirdo. But
Stilgar, Bardem, he's good.
Yeah, great.
We got the No Country crew back together.
Although I feel like they let some of his toughness go.
Yes, he's a very...
In the first one, he's very tough and scary. But then in this, he's just like a happy Papa Bear.
He's a very impressive figure throughout the book. And I didn't really like him. I didn't necessarily like... I guess in big budget movies, it's like you have to get comedy from somewhere. But yeah, like the goofball dad figure... is not what Stilgar is. In the
I think it worked in the movie, but it's kind of sad that we didn't get to see him also like rip a heart out of someone or something.
Sure.
Do you guys have any idea why Rabon always looked like he's about to like crap his pants? He looked like he's even when he runs, he's like not running right.
Probably the leather.
Yeah.
Copious amounts of leather he's wearing.
Too big for the outfit, maybe.
Are we going to talk about the infrared scene?
What, like on the Harkonnen planet?
On PD Prime, yeah.
Harkonnen planet. Say more.
Well, they shot it in infrared. That's how they got that look.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so all those scenes where they're all whited out, it's because it's shot in infrared as opposed to black and white. And I thought it looked cool. And one of my favorite things was the double clasped hand cheer that the Harkonnen do. I thought that was an interesting cheer for a creepy group of people.
Yeah, I wish more people would do like... There's so many movies where they just do a 1-to-1 ripoff of Nazis, and it's good to be like, we're invoking a Nazi thing, but we're going to change it slightly. Like, I was really worried before the first time that I think it's like some group of attendants or whatever start doing that. I was like, they're about to Zig Heil. And then when they did something else, I was like, oh, good.
Well, and speaking of Nazis, I thought it was funny, like, they're like, not only are these gross pedophile incestuous
Cannibalistic.
cannibals, not only are they those things, they're also Nazis. Now I bet you don't like them. And I'm like, no, like we already understood they were evil without like the marching scene, but like I guess you have to put that in just so people understand. And these are the bad guys. Those cannibal pedophiles, these aren't the good guys like in our world. These are the bad guys.
I did see a lot of people, even people who don't probably like Nazis, just talking about how cool that was, though. Like the the military parade. Villeneuve builds for each place. He built a really cool world. Each one, could be an episode of a show or something if they'd done it that way.
Cool, Fraser. Did you understand? So Fade Rotha keeps randomly killing people and saying like, "My darlings are hungry," but aren't his darlings some of the people he killed? Or is that like
they were different darlings. Now, this isn't in the book. I think there is some cannibalism and random killing in the book, but it's not like as explained or whatever. But like apparently, the ones that were wearing black suits, those were the cannibals, and they had like sharpened teeth. And then the ones that wear the white suits are like the ones that they kill for fun.
Got it.
Yeah, he has them deliver like a couple underwear models every day to sacrifice for his...
Yeah, and I think this was more so a callback to the 84 Dune than anything else. Where, you've got the weird like femboys that the Baron just like drinks their blood for fun.
And do we know, so in both movies, the Baron has some sort of like personal flotation device.
Yes.
Is that from the book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's got these things attached to his body because he's so fat he can't walk on his own.
In the books he's even fatter.
Yeah.
Which not the biggest thing, but I wonder if they could have just found like a real fat guy and just because
I liked him.
Baron's proportions, like they look alien in addition to being fat.
But so do Fade's. He looks like a weird alien man.
Who's that actor who played Baron Harkonnen? I thought he was pretty good.
Skarsgård.
That's right.
He's a good actor.
Is he the father of all the younger Skarsgårds?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. It's like the big Swedish acting dynasty. Cool, Fraser. This is something you might know, but for movies, who makes like these fake languages?
Yeah, I mean, I do know they hire linguists a lot of times. I mean, Dune has like Chekhovsa had a small vocabulary for it, but I'm assuming they hired someone. I actually don't know who they got to do the language, but one of my professors invented 2 languages for a film that was never released, but he had to invent the language for all the dialogue, and then he would kind of make a
alphabet or something,
like an alphabet and a dictionary for in case they wanted to do extra stuff later on. He would kind of describe the language and document it like a little grammar book, basically.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's various...
Yeah, I took a class on constructed languages, so I know a lot about it.
Oh, do you speak Esperanto?
No, but it was on Tolkien and constructed languages, so we went over how Tolkien made his languages.
Did Tolkien have a linguistic background, or how?
Yeah,
did
he was a philologist.
Oh, okay, I didn't even.
That's
know
how
that.
he started. He just started making up languages, and then he made Lord of the Rings as a world for those languages to be living in.
But yeah, apparently being like an intellectual advisor on film or TV is like the sweetest cottage industry in the world. Like I remember in maybe 2015 when I was doing more like ISIS media monitoring as my job, I got contacted by the House of Cards people, and they wanted to bring on an ISIS consultant, and I was in the running. And then after like 2 interviews, because of political developments in our country, they were like, we switched to making Russia the big bad. And then they just never called me again. But I was like, oh man, like I'm going to be on Easy Street just because it really was like, we'll give you $5,000 a month. And what you have to do is like producers are going to send you emails that say, would ISIS do this? And then you just answer them however you see fit.
It sounds like you were being groomed actually just to commit terrorism. You were just trying.
Yeah, it was actually an FBI agent I
Like,
was talking
yeah.
to, and I was just very confused.
Like, you're gonna get an email and you need to respond within half an hour.
You know who did the language for Dune? Linguist Jesse Peterson.
Jesse Peterson, Jesse Lee Peterson.
Yeah, Jesse Lee Peterson. That's why when Stilgar was like, you got all them women. Don't you like the white people, Johnny? Tell us about the white people. They're amazing.
Paul is amazing.
If we don't have the Atreides, we're gonna all die in the sand, Johnny.
Beta.
Yeah, Stilgar gives a speech where he's like, I prefer Atreides to Fremen because Fremen destroy, whereas the Atreides build.
You don't like that?
There's like 7 people who are gonna get that, but it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, speaking of all that stuff, are you guys excited for Trump's Lisan Al-Gaib moment in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be chanting
when he silences Biden's top female advisors.
Kamala.
Yes,
Yeah.
although as Cool Fraser will know, I think it is correct that Donald John Trump is Paul Atreides, and so the real guy you got to watch out for, the Leto 2, is Barron.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. If he starts getting like scabs on his skin or something, better watch out.
Barron could definitely hold his hand in the box.
An
indefinite amount of time.
Yeah, he could do it while playing a PC game or something.
Yeah, he could win at Fortnite with one hand in the box.
Speaking of Barron, would Zoomers like this movie?
Yeah, they'd love it.
Yeah, and they do love
Especially
it.
Zoomer women.
We know that they love it.
Well, because for Zoomers, this is a movie about like a scorned love story. And it's like, okay, I guess that's fine.
Well, it's got their 2 favorite things, which is Timothée Chalamet and a character experiencing trauma. It's like their 2 favorite things.
Yeah, there's got to be like a Zoomer think piece on the route somewhere about how like this is a great movie about how interracial dating is impossible under capitalism or something.
Oh, also, I want to say this. A lot of people are basically Dune has now gotten a pass as like woke, which is, I think it's funny because it's pretty explicitly like delves into like fascist themes and like stuff like that. But anyway, and it's pretty anti-woman in general. But it's gotten a pass as woke. So some people are trying to say, oh, this is a white savior story. And then there's a bunch of people like fighting against it, like media literacy folks. They're like, this isn't a white savior story. Let me explain. But like, it literally is. It's like the most white savior story of savior stories.
I won't name names, and Degree Studies knows who I'm talking about, but there's someone who ostensibly on the right was whining about this being a white savior story. And I'm just thinking like, I don't know. Don't we want white people saving other people? I thought that was part of the deal.
Right. Like it's literally a colonialist white savior story. Now, the later stories have a little bit of like things to say about that, but like, it's explicitly a white savior story. And, obviously it's not like as just saying, and white people are the best. That's not the moral of the story.
Well, that's what,
but like it is.
But also, I know that this is somewhat like people say the books are based on Lawrence of Arabia, and obviously that's like a British military man with all the knowledge and sort of capacity that comes with that, like leading very brave Arabs to victory over the Ottomans or whatever. So like that is 1-to-1. But I do think people get, because if I was gonna, because Dune will be a good book in 1,000 years when everyone is beige or whatever. Or white people have reconquisted the world and there's only white people, one or the other. But it's like, to me, it's an insider-outsider story. And like making it sort of like white v. brown, which is why I thought it was a good choice in a way in the Lynch movie, that like the Fremen are just sort of like, I don't know, they seem like Slavs Russian or something. Yeah, they're just like more rustic white people. But because it is a facet of history, I think even pre-colonial times, that like any outsider who is sort of brought in either through diplomacy or marriage or whatever, like it always is the case that they can offer like a new strategy to people who might have a lot of resources on their side, you know, like bravery or martial skill, but like there's something about the world they occupy that they don't understand, and only from someone from the outside can sort of like help them take the capacity they have and apply it correctly. And like that's probably a story that has even happened to white people with, you know, people coming from other empires or whatever. So like I just think it's a very narrow obviously like this movie means to take up like that colonial history, but certainly my experience of the book beyond knowing the T.E. Lawrence connection was just to say like, oh no, I think this is a true historical thing that like sometimes societies can be transformed or catapulted into a new age by like someone from without coming in and taking over, and that doesn't need to have a racial dynamic. It has for the last 500 years on Earth.
Yeah, it's not really racial in the books.
Right.
Oh, that's actually something I was curious about, because people are, it is a little strange that the Fremen are sort of like anything but white. Like you have like African people in there, you got Latino looking and Arab looking people. Like what does the book speak to that? Like,
well, yeah, in the books, like the people who found Arrakis, like were Bene Gesserit. Like, so like they're just descendants of the same people.
But was that like a multicultural expedition of Bene Gesserit or something? Or?
Well, it would have been 10,000 years in the past. So, but like explicitly, Herbert got inspired by most native cultures, but especially Bedouins and stuff like that. So it's mainly, you know, Middle East, North African, but technically he never specified what race they were.
Yeah, and I keep seeing this term pop up, you know, and I get why people use it. It's a convenient phrasing, but they keep saying like Muslim coded. Like the Fremen are Muslim coded.
Well, and they call it Orientalism, right? Which it kind of is as well, but like
back to that Zoomer thing, I was thinking, you know, when you do you know like an energy exploration or you're mining for gold or whatever, like you find, you know, the mother lode. This movie feels kind of like it might be the mother lode for like meme generation, like especially once the once the digital version comes out and people can get like high quality screen caps and stuff. I feel like this is going to be one of the biggest meme dumps of any movie of recent years, and every movie gets this treatment, but this one especially so.
Yeah, I've already seen Stilgar memes and worm memes. I'm seeing memes come out.
Oh, there's going to be a ton.
Yeah, so for January 6th, too, we'll have a lot of Dune 2 themed costumes and paraphernalia.
And what's interesting for me, the reason for this, it's twofold, which is that the movie is so incredibly visually striking, and like in a world where people can literally now create images on demand with like, you know, Mid-Journey or whatever. In a world where we're kind of drowning in images, this movie still generates a lot of iconic imagery. And then the other aspect for the meme ability is that it seems like everyone's going to see this. So there's some actual like monoculture returning for this thing, at least. Like they did with Barbie and Oppenheimer. So you can actually meme these things because everyone knows what you mean when you post the picture.
Yeah. And apparently
the memes must flow.
Yeah, the memes must flow. They shot it on digital, but then printed it onto 35 millimeter and then rescanned it. Can I say I felt like there was a difference between the cinematography in this one and Dune Part 1, because I felt like Dune Part 1 had a lot of like close-up shots of detail, and this had a lot more wide shots with blurry backgrounds.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think the blurry thing is actually kind of brilliant. I mean, Villeneuve probably didn't invent this, or whoever was the photographer on this one, but I doubt they invented this, but it's when you're doing that much CGI, it seems pretty smart to like keep it kind of fuzzy and in the distance, like, cause it just looks like a painting, or it even looks like, you know, and I started watching Lawrence of Arabia recently. It just looks like old film stock or something instead of fake, which is great.
Yeah, I felt they got the speed of the worms about right.
Yeah, the worm stuff was awesome. I mean, there's
Hmm.
aerial shots of like a bunch of worms side by side, people riding them. And like you mentioned earlier, the worm as part of the offensive,
Hmm.
very cool. I have a worm question though.
Yeah.
He summoned the grandfather worm, the
Hmm.
biggest that those people had ever seen. But so is Shai Halud alive? He's around, but no one summoned him, right?
So technically, Grandfather Worm is Shai Halud.
Oh, so that was him. Okay.
That was Shai Halud, but Shai Halud is not necessarily one worm. It's
Oh,
more of like a title.
okay.
Um,
It's like the big dog or something.
yeah, and it's kind of like if you're talking about the great worms, you would just talk about Shai Halud.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know
Like
those
Shai
big,
Halud is watching over us, or Shai Halud is going to destroy us, or whatever.
you know those big dog T-shirts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shai Halud is like that.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not a big dog, stay on the porch.
But yet, Shai
Exactly.
Halud also comes from the same root as Shaitan or Satan.
Should we
Ooh.
make Shai Halud shirts in the big dog theme? Like it's like a worm
Probably.
chilling with a daiquiri.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many fans I have, but that would be a good fan thing to do. So if you're a fan,
Yeah, get WBS apparel on it.
maybe do that. Maybe make some Shai Halud big dog shirts.
yeah, I'd wear it.
Cool, Fraser. Can you speak at all to Herbert? Like, to what extent? Because I feel like there's some Christianity sprinkled in here. There's some
Yeah.
Islam. Like, how much did Herbert? He seems so well versed in so many different things, but like, was he a Bible enjoyer or what?
I mean, he obviously would have been literate in the Bible and other religious texts.
Yeah.
I think it would be hard to write Dune without at least seriously contemplating divine things such as biblical Christianity. Um, to the extent he was like a devout believer of any one thing, I don't really think so. He was mostly like a hippie.
Yeah.
We kind of talk about this in Degree Studies podcast, how he was just kind of like a dirty hippie who was really interested in sex and drugs.
Shocking.
But
A sci-fi writer?
yeah, but I mean, he obviously, explicitly, Dune was written to explore how messiahs are made, the myth of Messiah. So it's as much about Muhammad as it is about Jesus,
Mhm.
right? And I think to an extent, Dune is himself grappling with those questions in his own mind.
Yeah, in some ways it's like, what if the transcendental God nature of Christ was combined with the martial history of Muhammad?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and I thought he was Jewish, but apparently he's not Jewish, or he may have been partially Jewish. I don't know.
I don't know. He wrote a good book, so he's probably Jewish. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, but so to a certain extent, and I think from a Jewish perspective, it is kind of like weird that Christians and Muslims believe in a Messiah. And
Well,
so
the tunnel Jews believe in a Messiah.
yes, they do. The tunnel Messiah. They would love this movie though. Tunneling
The tunnel
Jews,
Messiah is Shai Halud,
because the
another good
worms
shirt.
tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, but I mean, to a certain extent, this is where I'm like, with the death of the author and everything, where it doesn't really matter, and I think the questions he's asking are interesting and valid. In that, and I think it at the end of the day, his stuff is really coming from a faith promoting point of view. Especially in a modern world where everybody assumes everything is fake and made up by elites to control the populace, right? Because
Mhm.
that's kind of like the idea, but then it turns out it's real. And what does that mean? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
I have a slightly, this is all just taken from his novels, nothing I know about him personally, but I did find in the books that like everyone in the Bene Gesserit, for example, like they take themselves and their religion very seriously as like an important earthly force, but none of them seem like it. It always struck me that he must have been in some sense like a secular atheist, because if you were going to write like a satire of the Catholic Church or something, you could have all these political figures like priests and bishops and stuff who were like conniving political people. But if you wanted to be historically true, some of them would also be deep believers and like people who, you know, they would range. And I did find in his treatment of the Bene Gesserit in the books, they almost all conceive of themselves as like political actors, and the faith is a means to their political and social ends. But they aren't really portrayed as like deeply connected to the metaphysical aspects of their tradition. And so I thought that was like a slight oversight, because like people so you know, living their entire lives in this faith tradition, like certainly that tradition would have more effect on them than just its political and social applications, which is sort of how it's presented in the book.
Right, and it's also like kind of odd that they're seeking after this Kwisatz Haderach, but at the same time they're afraid that he's going to destroy them, and like, I don't know.
Yeah, I asked the thing about the Bible and stuff. I mean, I just think reading it, because I'm reading it now, I'm halfway through, and it's like, I know, you know, smart people have always existed and everything, but it's really impressive and incredible how like the kind of range of knowledge he appears to have about just weird things. Tons of ecological stuff in the book.
Yeah, and what we said on Degree Studies podcast, which is more about the book, he was like just like the early like Wikipedia reader, you know, Twitter expert. Like, you know, you've got just some like anime profile anon who just knows everything about every topic.
Well, which is really quite impressive in the 1950s when you actually had to go to the library or whatever. But
yeah, and it makes his world building so much better. Like every other sci-fi author is just like, oh, in the future, like everyone's like Sam Harris. and sort of like or you know, they'll paint a society as like, this star system is controlled by religious fundamentalists and this star system is secular atheists.
Right,
or like these people are really
each
democracy.
System is one thing.
Right. And
there's like complexity in his stuff. Well, like, cause yeah, like I said, he borrowed from the Bedouin, from the Arabs, from the Ottomans, he also cites like Native Americans in his Fremen portrayals. And
yeah, and he has really interesting ideas about like how religions might combine, or like there's a lot of syncretism in the book. Like they talk about the Orange Catholic Bible, but
the
I
Zen
think it's
Sunni mentats.
Yeah. Like he sort of, he has a vision of how, you know, ideas contemporary to his world would be translated like deep into the future, but he actually manages to do something creative and original with it. Whereas like most people, they have a much more, they have a much less dynamic vision, and they are just doing one-to-one comparisons of like, oh, this group that exists in our time will exist in exactly the same form in the future. And like everything he creates, even though they're drawn from his knowledge of anthropology, is like really unique and really believable where they're placed in the world. So it's like, I don't think in terms of plot structure and like characterization, I think he's just like a good author. But I think the world building stuff is where he's like absolutely the S tier science fiction author. And like, that's why his books are like extremely evocative and persistent, and why they're just extremely interesting.
Well, and it seems like from like the Wikipedia about his life, he was a bit of a neat. Like he was, he had a wife for like 2 years and she divorced him, and then he got some other wife who just like let him stay home while she made money, and he'd just like play around with his manuscripts.
Yeah, he worked with some ecology thing up in California or Oregon or whatever, where he worked on a sand dune project, and that's where Dune came from.
Sounds like I need to study this guy's life more closely too.
Yeah, but like he basically spent his days like learning about stuff and writing weird worlds. All Are you surprised they portrayed the Harkonnen as vaguely homosexual?
Well, I know the lore there I know that the Baron is aggressively homosexual.
Well, and there's a recording of Frank Herbert being he gave a speech at I think it was like Stanford or something like that, and then the students do a Q&A after, and one of the students is gay and is like, this is in the 80s, right? And he's like, why did you make your bad guys gay, basically? And he's like, he kind of gives an answer, but it's kind of funny.
I heard the clip. Friend of the show, Fractal, sent it to me.
Oh, cool.
And I listened to it a couple days ago, and I think he basically says like, well, gay people exist, and some of them are bad. And the guy's like, and the guy in the audience is like, but why did you make him bad? Like,
right. No one else is gay.
Yeah, well, granted, you can decide whether to keep this in or not, but I think one Twitter personality's revulsion to the film might be, it's not comfortable seeing yourself depicted.
I don't want to open that one up.
Well, I did see some people trying to be like, oh, the Harkonnen are actually based. And I'm like, that's definitely a take.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, maybe not on this one, actually.
Yeah, I did see that one a bit. They're like, oh, yeah, Gedi Prime was the best, fascist aesthetics. Like, they care about the body, except for the Baron, of course. But
yeah, it makes no sense. But I did think Austin Butler did a job as coming across both creepy and charming.
But I think it's very interesting in a way that it's like, because in both the books and the movie, it's like, what is the implication of Feyd-Rautha's, or like, I find it very evocative, the distinction between the Baron and Feyd-Rautha's physical form. Because is it sort of like, if you log 50 years being like a super Nazi, keeping it tight, but you like do your time, you can become a complete fat sex pervert? Like, is that the space Nazi retirement plan?
Well,
like,
it's kind of like, it's kind of like it's like decadence and power, and it can take different forms. Where like the Beast Rabon is just pure strength, then Baron is just pure like hedonism. And then I guess Feyd would be pure like beauty and whatever,
But in terms of the Harkonnens being based, and I think this actually is like an insight that all political actors, including the Twitter right, should take on, is that like, I do think the book encourages you, like, I think the whole point of revealing, and in the narrative structure, having the Harkonnen and Atreides actually be one bloodline is like, I think the point the book is trying to make is like that the difference between someone who would be hated by history and adored by history is pretty subtle. And that like many of the same instincts would exist in both characters. Yeah.
I think we can wrap it up there. Anyone have any last comments they want to work in there? I know, Fraser, I know you had a couple. You were talking about media literacy, and what was the other thing?
I kind of brought it up with what I was talking about with the white savior story and media literacy.
That's true.
But yeah, I just think media literacy at this point is actually, have you actually read it?
Yeah.
Nobody reads.
Well, even now with the movie, even now with movies, I felt like with this one, it's like, have you actually watched it? Like, did you even?
Yeah.
Cause I will say, here's maybe my parting thought, something I wanted to emphasize a little more earlier, but there was a lot of claims about like, this is a girl boss movie and Paul is being henpecked, and it's like, did you guys watch the movie? Because by the end of the movie, he's shouting everyone down, even the like Supreme Reverend Mother. He's like psychologically stronger than her. He doesn't put up with her games anymore. He's not letting anyone tell him what to do, including and especially women. Like
especially Zendaya.
Yeah, I mean, he casts her. I mean, he doesn't really cast her aside, but in the logic, I guess, of the movie, he knows what he's going to do will upset her, but he's just like, I got to do this. I got to go marry this other girl, and he's like, he's not heartbroken about it. Like, so anyway,
yeah, he alpha widows Zendaya.
Yeah, people just simply were not watching the movie, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, let's wrap it up there. Thanks a ton for joining, guys. This was for people at home. Maybe this didn't come across, but this came together last minute because we had to do some rescheduling of some people and stuff. So, yeah, thanks for being available, guys. Thanks for a great conversation. We'll probably be talking more about Dune sometime in the near future. So, anything you guys want to plug? Definitely, people should definitely be purchasing Kroom. Paul Atreides would not be where he is now without the help of Kroom.
Yeah, and
that's actually what he drinks
Kroom,
at the end.
Yeah.
Kroom comes from worms, right?
Yeah, Kroom is from worms for sure. When they buried Jameis, they spread Kroom on his eyes.
Oh, the still what is it called? Still tombs?
Still gel.
No, where they like squish them and get their water out. I thought
Yeah.
it was done well in this because they just kind of like have portable ones.
Yeah, that was really cool. There's tons of little cool technical little.
I liked
gadgets
floating
and
Harkonnen was good.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, I just think people don't have to love this movie, or even people don't have to like it. I can appreciate that some people would not enjoy it, but this is a pretty awesome movie, especially for a theater experience. And I think people will be remembering this one for a long time. I think it's sort of, it's up there with some of the sci-fi greats. So
yeah.
You asked me at the beginning to give it a number score, but I would like to finish by saying that I give it 3 out of 4 Avatar 2: The Way of Waters.
Oh, I got a question. One last question.
Yeah.
Jake Sully and Natiri, or Chani and Paul?
Well, Natiri is at least supportive of her man.
That's true. I think if you were just choosing one individual, you'd choose Paul.
If you had to noodle meld with one.
But as a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, Natiri. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not missing the opportunity to noodle meld.
All right, guys. Everyone go follow Degree Studies and Cool Fraser if he wants followers. He'll probably just reject you, but that's okay.
Yeah, I don't do followers.
Yeah. He's Paul in his like humble era.
Yeah.
But he will awake one day.
Yeah, the sleeper has awoken.
Yeah.
We didn't get that. We need that line.
Yeah.
Also, she doesn't say, "Tell me of the waters of your homeworld, Usul."
We should get
something like it.
So for the big dog shirts, we have a cute worm lying in bed, and like his mom's trying to wake him up for school, and then on the back it says the sleeper has awoken.
Yes.
Fraser, can you lead us in a recitation of Lisan Al Gaib?
Okay, we're gonna do Muad'Dib, Lisan Al Gaib.
Oh, okay.
Muad'Dib, Lisan Al Gaib. Muad'Dib,
Lisan Al Gaib.
Muad'Dib,
Lisan Al Gaib.
Bilal Khalifa.
Is this something you could say like, I shall not goon. Goon is the mind killer. Goon is the little death that.
I shall not croom.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you.
See ya.